Everyone else seemed very confident about what I was going to do. That was the first thing that bothered me. They stood in their careful semicircles, arranged by invisible metrics I couldn't see but definitely felt. Rank, approval, social temperature. This species measured everything that way. Even the air seemed sorted. I had been placed exactly where an outsider should stand, close enough to matter, far enough not to stain anything important. In front of us waited the candidates. They were calm, polished, harmonized. Their expressions were identical in the way that only long practice can achieve. I suspected they rehearsed neutrality the way humans rehearsed smiles in mirrors, except here it was considered dignified instead of unsettling. And then there was her. She stood half a step out of alignment, which might as well have been a declaration of war. Her posture wasn't defiant, just uncorrected. Her long ears angled slightly back, not submissive, not aggressive, simply tired of pretending they didn't have opinions of their own. If the others were smooth equations, she was a variable everyone had circled in red and agreed not to solve. I leaned toward the nearest official. Is she glitching? The official stiffened. She is noted. That told me everything. In every culture, noted meant please don't ask. The system behind us hummed, running projections, predicting outcomes. I could almost hear it whispering probabilities. 98% chance I'd choose one of the admired ones. 1% margin for ceremonial error. 1% reserved for catastrophic misunderstanding, usually involving humans. I shifted my weight. Somewhere an analyst probably flinched. They began the formal presentation. Achievements were listed. Lineage confirmed. Harmonization scores displayed in soft holographic light. Each candidate nodded at the appropriate moments as if gratitude were scheduled. When they reached her, the tone changed. The words became careful, achievements were framed as tolerances, strengths were mentioned like regrettable side effects. She demonstrates persistence, someone said. I couldn't help myself. That sounds like a compliment where I come from. A ripple went through the observers. Humor here was a dangerous substance. It dissolved things. She glanced at me then, just briefly. Her eyes held something sharp and restrained, like someone used to being misunderstood and too tired to correct it. I smiled at her. It was instinctive. Humans smile when uncomfortable. Sometimes it accidentally saves civilizations. The presentation ended. The room held its breath. This was the moment everyone had prepared for. The moment that would confirm the charts, justify the exclusions, keep the social machinery humming. I looked at the admired ones. They looked back with polite expectation. Then I looked at her. The system hesitated, literally hesitated. A fraction of a second stretched too long. I imagined warning icons blooming somewhere deep in the infrastructure. You understand, an elder said carefully, the implications of your choice. Usually, I replied, not always immediately. A few nervous clicks passed between them. I could feel their fear, not of me but of unpredictability, of envy, of the way choosing wrong could elevate what they had spent generations pushing down. I took a breath. It felt oddly heavy, like gravity had opinions. I choose her, I said. Silence crashed down like a dropped instrument. Someone made a small, involuntary sound. Another person's interface flickered and went dark. The admired candidates froze, expressions finally cracking, confusion leaking through the polish. She blinked, once, slowly, as if checking whether she'd misheard. You're sure? An official asked, voice thin. I rarely am, I said, but I'm committed. The system behind us emitted a noise I can only describe as concern. Whispers spread. Not loud enough to be accusations yet, but sharp with panic. I caught fragments. Anomaly, destabilizing, envy marker, social contamination. All the familiar words societies use when they're afraid of fairness. She stepped forward before anyone told her not to. That alone felt like another violation. Why? She asked me quietly. I shrugged. Everyone else seemed very sure I wouldn't. That earned a sound from her, half laugh, half disbelief. The tension cracked just a little. Around us, the carefully balanced order wobbled. I felt it then, the moment something irreversible began. Not because of rebellion or force, but because a system built on expectation had just encountered a human doing exactly what it wasn't optimized to handle. Choosing the inconvenient person. And for the first time since I arrived, I realized I wasn't the outsider anymore. They escorted us away separately, which was comforting in the same way a polite arrest usually is. No restraints, no accusations, just a lot of people pretending this was all part of the plan. The corridor lights adjusted themselves as we walked, dimming slightly, as if the station itself was embarrassed. So, I said, breaking the silence, on a scale from 1 to ritual exile, how bad is this going to be? She considered, traditionally. Yes, very. And personally. She tilted her head, long ears angling forward now, alert and curious. Personally, I'm enjoying the confusion. That made me laugh, louder than was probably wise. A drone nearby paused mid-flight, recalculating whether humor constituted a threat. They placed us in a waiting chamber that had been carefully designed to feel neutral, which in practice meant uncomfortable for everyone. The walls shimmered with adaptive patterns meant to calm the occupants. Unfortunately, they seemed calibrated for aliens with entirely different nervous systems. Is it supposed to look like that? I asked, pointing at a pattern that resembled a nervous spreadsheet. She squinted. It's meant to represent social balance. Ah, I said, I always find those soothing. She sat, folding her hands with deliberate calm. I noticed how her posture had changed since the selection. Not confident exactly, more like someone who had stopped apologizing internally. They will analyze this, she said. They will attempt to understand why you chose me. Good luck to them. They will assume manipulation, or defect, or errors. Well, I said, I am human. Error is always on the table. That earned a real smile this time, the kind that reached her eyes before she remembered she wasn't supposed to enjoy this. Minutes stretched. Hours, maybe. Time behaved strangely here, bending around anticipation. Through the translucent wall, I could see officials arguing in clusters, their gestures sharp, their tones carefully moderated. A few glanced our way as if we were contagious. They're afraid of you, I said. Of me? She sounded surprised. Of what you represent, you're the proof that their system doesn't sort perfectly. She was quiet for a moment. They've always said my presence caused imbalance. That others reacted poorly to me. People react poorly to mirrors, I said, especially when they don't like what they see. She laughed softly, then stopped herself, ears flattening in reflex. I shouldn't. It's fine, I said. If they punish laughter, I'm doomed anyway. Eventually, an elder entered. No rank symbols, no entourage. That alone was unsettling. You have created a complication, the elder said. Professionally or personally? I asked. The elder blinked. Progress, you selected an individual marked by social discord. I selected a person, I replied. The rest seems like metadata. The elder turned to her. You did not object. She lifted her chin. I was not asked to consent before. Silence again. This one heavier. The elder studied her, really studied her, as if seeing her for the first time without the filters of reputation metrics and cautionary annotations. I could almost hear the system trying to supply a warning label and failing. This choice, the elder said slowly, forces review. Great, I said. I love being part of a review. They left us alone again after that, which I took as a good sign, or at least a less bad one. Later, much later, she spoke quietly. No one has ever chosen me publicly. I find that hard to believe, I said. Privately, yes. Quietly, with explanations and apologies attached. Well, I said, I forgot to apologize. She looked at me, something fragile and unfamiliar in her expression. Thank you for that. I leaned back against the wall, watching the pattern stutter. You know, back home we have a saying, if everyone agrees on something, someone's probably wrong. She considered this. Your species sounds exhausting. Constantly. Outside, the arguments continued. Systems recalculated. Models failed. Somewhere, a civilization adjusted its expectations by a fraction of a degree, which was enough to crack the whole structure. She sat beside me, no longer half a step out of alignment, but exactly where she chose to be. And for the first time, I wondered what would happen next. Not to me, but to them, now that the inconvenient variable had been selected and refused to disappear. The reactor finally stopped screaming. That alone felt like a miracle worth applauding, but my hands were busy holding together two cables that absolutely should not have been kissing each other. Blue sparks snapped inches from my face, and the station lights flickered like they were reconsidering their life choices. Okay, I said out loud, mostly to myself, partly to the universe. Nobody move, especially you. I glanced at the core. It glowed back at me, offended. Behind me, Lyra cleared her throat. You are aware, she said, that if you let go, we all turn into very educational debris. Wow, I muttered. And here I was hoping for uneducational debris. She laughed, an actual laugh. 3 months ago, she barely trusted humans not to poison their own air. Progress. I counted down in my head, rerouted the power through the improvised coil we'd built from a door hinge, a coffee heater, and what I sincerely hoped was not part of life support, and then silence. The lights steadied. The core dimmed to a calm, obedient hum. We stood there for a moment, breathing. Then the station's AI chimed cheerfully. "Crisis resolved. Please refrain from heroic improvisation in the future." "I will absolutely not refrain," I said. "That's basically my brand now." Lyra shook her head, the faint bioluminescent patterns on her skin pulsing with relief. "You have a strange definition of success." "Still alive," I said. "Top-tier success." We walked back toward the observation ring, passing crew members who stared like they weren't sure whether to salute me or ask for my autograph. The same people who'd ignored me when I was just the quiet human engineer nobody voted for. The same station that had almost handed control to the consortium delegate with the perfect smile and the very hidden knife. The delegate was waiting by the viewport, hands clasped, expression tight. "You've delayed the inevitable," he said. "The vote already happened," Lyra said. "Emergency protocol transferred authority to the one who saved the station." The delegate looked at me, really looked, him. I shrugged. I fell into it, very dangerous, slippery heroism. Security escorted him away, still protesting. I watched until the doors slid shut, feeling something unexpected settle in my chest. Not triumph, not anger, just quiet. Later, when the station drifted peacefully again and the crisis reports were filed under, "Please don't let this happen again," Lyra and I sat by the stars. The nebula outside spread like spilled paint, colors bending around distant gravity wells. "You know," she said, "when I first met you, I assumed humans were reckless children with technology they didn't deserve." "And now?" I asked. "And now I think you are reckless adults with technology you somehow make work." She tilted her head, "Including yourself." I laughed. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. She studied me for a long moment. "You didn't choose power when you had the chance. You chose people." "I used to think choosing people was how you got burned," I said. "Turns out it's also how you keep warm." The station AI interrupted politely. "Apologies, warmth levels are optimal." "Thank you," I said, "emotionally speaking." In the days that followed, repairs turned into plans. Trade routes reopened. The alien families who'd prepared to flee unpacked their lives again. Kids, human and otherwise, raced through the corridors, arguing over whose species had better snacks. I found myself consulted, listened to, occasionally argued with, and for the first time it didn't feel like I was shouting into vacuum. On my last night before returning to Earth, I stood alone by the viewport. The stars felt less distant now, less judgmental. Lyra joined me holding a small data crystal. "For you," she said, "a record of what you did here from our perspective." I took it, surprised. I didn't do it alone.